Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Shares with Kevin, where we add value to people's lives happening every day at 12 on ebizradio.com. For our lunchtime marketing segment, our very own resident genius, I've coined it now as the resident genius.
I'll claim that. Thank you.
Marketing and communications expert, Craig Page-Lee. Hello, Craig. How are you doing?
Hello. How are you, Kevin?
Good.
Yeah, great.
Excited to have today's discussion. I know you also said that there's loads to be chatting about today, so I want to kick it off straight away with after last week's discussion. Each time I held my bank card in my hand, I was pointing at my mobile phone and hoping that the bank statement would come to life. But maybe you could just give people an understanding of why I'm saying that.
Yeah, gosh, that's great. Yeah, I think we're going to need to help you download a couple of the reality apps there, firstly, to bring that to fruition. Yeah, maybe even just start with a simple Dulux paint ad, Kevin. You can point it at the wall and
Yes.
pick your color spectrum there. Yeah, so the reality here is we spoke about augmented reality last week, and quite a broad topic. And a fascinating topic, because we're really seeing augmented reality come to life across multiple brands, but really the focus last week was on the financial services space, hence you referencing your card, because just pointing a phone camera at a debit or credit card with the right technology in place, you can actually bring to life a digital version of your actual statement in this virtual arena, augmented arena, floating above your mobile device. So yeah, I can imagine you wanting to do that time and time again. It's good fun to be playing with. But yeah, just picking up on that, let me share some of the pointers from last week as our regular opening sort of process in each of the shows. So I want to pick up on some of the simple points from the Guru 99 blog, Kevin. And that really just looks at a couple of simple things, like firstly, where is augmented reality used? So very much in the printing and advertising industries, they're using AR tech in apps to display digital content on top of real life magazines, at least real world magazines. The reality here is you could have an auto trader in front of you. You can point your camera and your mobile device at a particular vehicle in the auto trader magazine, and it'll bring that entire experience to life, giving information on model, age, mileage, trade prices, potential retail prices, guarantees, etc., etc. So very much an enablement of bringing digital to tech, at least to print. As I mentioned, very much in the financial services industry, they're doing the same by overlaying information when you point at one of your cards. And what's really cool is in the travel industry, with the right trigger, you can actually start getting some translations of the languages and information of the various places that you visit. With the help of a Unity 3D engine, AR is also coming to life in a much more realistic real-time 3D capability in gaming as well. So you probably ask, what are the advantages of augmented reality? Well, definitely we can see something that we've picked up on quite a bit here is it can be used to develop and deliver personalized learning across a wide variety of fields, and something that's got a lot of relevance in your particular world. It can enhance learning processes for many. It also enables innovation and continuous improvement in business, from systems to processes and the education behind those. It helps improve and increase accuracy. And for me, the interesting here is that you can actually have a really interactive experience across the world. You could be sitting in Tokyo, somebody else in London, and us pointing at the same information with our mobile phones. We could actually in real time share those experiences over distance, which is quite exciting. And then it helps games that offer real experiences to the user. Yeah. The important thing is there's a very distinct difference between augmented reality and virtual reality, and I'll give you the 4 or 5 sort of key differences here. So augmented reality is the system that augments the real world scene, whereas virtual reality is an immersive virtual environment. AR user always has a sense of the presence in the real world, whereas VR, you're under control of the system and you feel that you're immersed in another world. Augmented reality is 25% virtual and 75% real, whereas virtual reality is the other way around, 75% virtual and only 25% real. In AR, the technology partly immerses the user into the action, whereas in virtual reality, it's fully immersive in the action. Augmented reality requires upwards of 100 millibits per second bandwidth, whereas VR requires only 50. Again, one of the good entry points for AR is you don't necessarily need headsets, whereas when you're wanting to get into good real virtual reality experience, you need devices and expensive headsets. With AR, end users are still in touch with the real world while interacting with virtual objects in and around or near them, whereas by using virtual reality technology, the user is isolated from the real world and immerses himself in a completely fictional world. And lastly, AR is used to enhance both real and virtual, whereas VR is used to enhance fictional reality for the gaming world.
Yeah. So, great. And I'm just, guys, if you are joining us for our conversation, Craig has been sharing some amazing information on how important stuff like virtual reality can influence how markets out there and how corporates out there are actually engaging with technology to improve user engagement and really find the benefits to that. But Craig, so what are we sharing today? So because that, everything that we talk about is always linked from one situation to the next. So I'm curious about today's conversation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. I'm flipping it on its head today. Okay. I'm actually going back to the beginning.
Perfect.
So we've covered some big topics the past few weeks, and on reflection, I thought actually let's go back to basics for a while and let's look at the steps required in building a brand. And what I'd like to do is then build a series of these, because it's a conversation that can go on for at least two particular episodes. So yeah, let's look at what's required in building a brand, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good idea, a good part for listeners out there, because there's a large part of the listenership that we have that would really want to understand what the basics of brand building, etc. is.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as we go through the various points, I think those that have listened and picked up on some of the other podcasts will actually see the relevance and the linkages through this particular process. So yeah, let's start as usual by setting some context. But today, obviously pick up on what a brand is and why we actually need branding, Kevin.
Yeah.
As usual, looking at the range of the online dictionaries, I noted a definition of a brand as a noun being described as a type of product manufactured by a particular company under a particular name, for example, a new brand of soap powder. But then referencing another of my really favorite content sources, the American Marketing Association. Kevin, I don't know if you've ever been to the AMA site, a phenomenal site. Their brand is defined as a name, a term, a design, a symbol, or any other feature that identifies one seller's goods or services as distinct from those of other sellers. And the legal term for a brand in this instance is trademark, and a brand may identify one item, a family of items, or actually all items of that seller. And if used as a firm or a company as a whole, the preferred term in this instance is a trade name. But yeah, Kevin, as you're aware, there are many different interpretations and opinions on brands. And I've selected a couple of really great ones and picking up on some industry names that I hope our listeners do take a note of and actually investigate further, because there's a lot to be learned from some of the individuals here. So let's have a look at those. The first here being that branding is the art of aligning what you want people to think about your company with what people actually do think about your company, and vice versa. And obviously, if you get it wrong, well, they're not going to be thinking much about you, and vice versa. But yeah, obviously we need to look at some great industry folks. So looking at Leo Burnett, the legendary American advertising exec who was responsible for many of the most iconic brand campaigns of the 20th century, including that phenomenal campaign of Marlboro Man. He states that a brand symbol is anything that gives a mental picture of a brand's identity. So if you don't mind, I want to reference two more sources, starting with one of my absolute favorite authors, Kevin, that being Seth Godin. I'm sure you've come across Seth Godin.
I have, yes.
Yeah. He's an American author and former .com exec, and he states that a brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that's taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. If the consumer, whether it's a business, a buyer, a voter, or a donor, doesn't pay a premium, make a selection, or spread the word, then no brand value exists for that consumer. And yeah, an important point there. And last but not least, I have to include a statement from Philip Kotler. For those that don't know, Philip Kotler is also an American author, but more commonly known as the S.E. Johnson and Son Distinguished Professor of International Marketing at the Kellogg School of Management in Northwest University, USA, and really the father of marketing and the author of the Hand Bible of Marketing Studies in many business schools around the world. Philip Kotler states that a brand is a name, a term, sign, a symbol, or a design, or a combination of them intended to identify goods or services of one seller to a group of sellers and to differentiate them from those of the competitor. So you're seeing a lot of competitor differentiation, seller of goods and services, and identity coming through. So there's a lot of constructs that we need to tackle in the conversation here.
Well, yeah, Craig, that's a lot to take in, and thanks for introducing us to the names of some of those industry legends. I'm just worried about going through this so quite specifically. I've already noticed that I'm like, okay, so is my branding actually doing the job here? So I'm going to go back to like really ask that question, how is it working? But now that we have a clear understanding of the broader context of the brand, what a brand is, how is the brand developed and used? So let's tackle that.
Yeah, I'm going to dive straight into it because it's a big question. So it's not a 5-minute exercise, and then there are many brands in the marketplace that have adopted the 5-minute approach, and there's clear evidence that they've gone down the wrong route. But it's not about that today. It's about the right brand. So let's unpack the approach to branding. There are a myriad of supporting articles, Kevin, but really there's one that stood out for me that is succinct and defines the process in a comprehensive and easy way. It's titled The 11 Simple Steps for Successful Brand Building Process. Updated article being posted very recently, 6th of April this year on freshbox.com. It was published by Sonia Gregory. So it opens with the following statement, actually from Jeff Bezos, everybody knows, founder of Amazon, where he states, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And I think that's absolutely true, whether it's your personal brand or the product or service brand. It's about what people say when your back is turned. So in other words, it's your reputation. And to ensure a great reputation, it has to be consistent in communication and experience across all the platforms. And we've spoken about many of those applications. But yeah, again, to reiterate, they include the likes of the environment, retail stores, your digital shop front in the e-com environment, or even the corporate office as a corporate brand. Print collateral, signage, packaging, whether it's the connected package or just, good old beautiful piece of design on the shelf, to websites, your online advertising, all of your social media, your content publishing, your blog sites, obviously sales and customer service, and most importantly, the internal brand engagement and alignment with employees. As I mentioned previously as well, Kevin, it doesn't happen overnight, but to build a successful brand and achieve consistency in the communication and experience requires a brand strategy. It also doesn't stop after the brand strategy is developed, Kevin, because you then need to build the identity and you need to define how you're going to present the brand to the market. And then once that's entrenched, you actually need to then have a look at how the brand needs to be marketed to the right audience to create that brand awareness and growth. So a lot of effort goes into those three particular points. And you know, once that's in place, you need to establish that long-term relationship with your consumers, because it's only on the back of those well-entrenched relationships that you inevitably end up with good word-of-mouth referrals, which in turn lead to a steady flow of leads. And you know, what does every brand want? They want sales and they want advocacy for the brand's products and services.
Yeah, you know, Craig, before I get to the next question, like one of that, you've just summed it up. So I think I'm doing good right here, because,
Yes.
you know, what people are saying when you're not in the room kind of, and I've already had two of my biggest clients that have referred business and, you know, like really got me into a position where I'm like, oh, okay, this is fantastic. And it's purely based on the immediate go-to kind of conversation. For who they should recommend for this, for whatever sort of service you could deliver. And I think that also speaks to exactly what you're talking about, right? So the brand itself is that almost you become the unspoken sharing of your clients based on the fact that you're delivering value and delivering a service. But you mentioned brand strategy and brand identity, brand marketing. They seem to flow from one to the next. Are you able to expand on these concepts briefly for us?
Yeah, Kevin, absolutely. And it's really great that, you know, you're able to cite an example that when you're not in the room, you're getting referrals. So there definitely is something working in respect of your brand. Yeah. So yeah, the three concepts do flow from one to the next, and they can be summarized in a very simple way. So let's start with brand strategy. So brand strategy maps out how the brand is different, how it's trustworthy, memorable, and likable by the ideal customer. It, however, must convey the brand's purpose, something we've touched on briefly in a number of the conversations. But yeah, definitely brand purpose is something that I'd like to bring a specialist to join us in a conversation on soon, because there's a wonderful full session that we can have on that. However, the brand must also convey the brand's promise and how the brand solves, most importantly, problems for people or meets their needs.
Yeah.
To quote Sonia Gregory from the published article again, you can think of a brand strategy as a blueprint for how you want the world to see your business or products and services. So brand strategy is critical, and it's the foundational piece for building a successful brand. And it's one of the areas that most businesses, Kevin, genuinely, most businesses overlook this because they jump straight into the design process and think of, you know, from design straight into marketing, and they miss the importance of brand strategy, and you really need to consider these components as part of the process: brand discovery, competitor research, target audience, something we've spoken about ad nausea, your brand voice, and then your brand message and story as part of that brand building process. So once that's considered in place, you move on to the brand identity, which is the way the brand's represented to the marketplace or to the public. And that can be in the form of the use of visuals, messaging, tone of voice, and ultimately the brand experience, whether it is through the digital shopfront or actually walking into a physical store or through a call center. So brand strategy will influence the identity and how it's presented and how it aligns with the purpose for the most impact. The elements of brand strategy to consider is that, you know, it has to be at least applied with ruthless consistency across the multiple of touch points. And those elements consist of the logo, your colors and fonts, your patterns and icons, your collateral, operational elements or marketing elements, whether in hard copy or digital format, all of the digital touch points like web design and social media elements, your content and messaging, and obviously advertising through the line and through that whole consumer experience touchpoint journey, and then printing and packaging. So with that in place, you then move on to the third point, and that being the brand marketing, which is the way the business organization actually highlights and brings awareness of those products and services to the market and connects the values and voice to the right audience through those strategic communication layers. So in today's day and age, we know that the brand can be amplified through the various digital touch points. and then marketing activities like UX, so your user experience on a website, through your SEO and content marketing, SEO obviously being your search engine optimization, through all of the social media marketing components, and then email marketing, which is still one of the most effective strategies for the B2B marketing world, and finally through your PPC, paid per click environment. And yeah, those channels are essential to ensuring brand awareness and growth.
Great. So you mentioned brand purpose again, and you've referenced how brands have been delivering brand purpose in different ways, specifically when you tackle the topic of green economy and sustainable brands. Is it possible to share how brands define their purpose? And because from a coaching perspective, you often speak about purpose as well, and so many people, it's like an unanswered question. They just simply don't know the answer. So when it comes to your brand, like how do you what do we do?
Yeah, that's a great question you ask there, particularly in light of your reference to the work you do. So while I mentioned that we can look at purposes in a really deep dive with a standalone exercise, there's actually at least a standalone session. There's a really nice simple exercise that comes out of this particular part of the conversation that individuals can actually use to evaluate their own purpose. So let's look at some of the guiding principles in this regard. So yeah, in the 11 steps or 11 points mentioned, I'm going to start with the first one, which is actually purpose. So to start off with, every successful brand has a powerful purpose behind it, Kevin. And in essence, it's the reason that the representatives, the owners, or the ambassadors of the brand wake up every morning to go and deliver that brand to the world as a whole. And it's about what the brand stands for through its respective products and services. And this has been covered, as you said, in the way that brands align with the environmental social issues that we've covered in our various conversations previously. What's important here, and I talk about the simple exercise now, Kevin, is that there are really 4 key questions that one should ask when defining a brand purpose. So the first thing is, why do you exist, or why does the brand exist? The second is, what differentiates you as your personal business or the brand? What problems do you solve, and why should people actually care? These ideas help inform the foundation of that brand through the likes of taglines, slogans, value propositions, the voice, the messaging, the brand stories, etc. And as we know from the previous conversations, Kevin, that more than 50% of consumers worldwide say they now buy based on a company's brand values and impact, which in essence inform the purpose. So when you get that particular aspect right, you filter through the mess and you raise to the top and you become the brand of choice there. So yeah, there's the most beautiful reference from Simon Sinek. He is a leadership expert and has developed a really impactful model called the Golden Circle, which identifies or helps identify the purpose behind almost anything in business or life and therefore brands. And whilst Simon comes across as quite simple to some critiques, the depth of his thinking is just really resolute, and myself and many of the other brand folk that I work really believe that there's a de facto go-to in his definition. So let's have a look at his Golden Circle. So starting from the outside, it's got three sort of rings to it. The first ring addresses the what, and it focuses on the products or services that you offer to your customers. So if you were evaluating your brand, you'd say, what am I offering? Then the next ring looks at the how. So what are the things that differentiate you from your competitor? So now that you've understood the what, you're able to start talking about the differentiation to your competitor, and you end up with a sweet spot or the bullseye in the middle that actually addresses the why and the reason that you're passionate about your business and the brand and why it exists. So he also talks about 3 really, really wonderful phrases where he talks about that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that goes back to the core about what purpose your brand stands for. The goal is not to do business with everybody that needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. And when you can really define your purpose, that will just be an automatic linkage, because when you understand what you are, how you do it, and why you do it, you're going to be resonating for those individuals who want to do business with you because they believe what you believe.
And Craig, lending that to, marketing, that is exactly why you need to understand the purpose and the branding of what it is you're branding, because how you market that essentially will speak from the branding perspective, the actual why people should care, right? Yep. So all of this ties back into, how that influences how you speak to people at the end of the day from a marketing perspective.
Absolutely. And again, I think the value here is that the model is actually quite simple. At the end of the day, when you're able to do your what, answer your how, and define your why, you'll be able to really get to understand where you are and where you should be going, because it reveals some of the gaps in the process as well. So yeah. His video on YouTube is apparently one of the most watched videos on the internet. It's definitely worth a watch. Important here is that individuals who watch it must look at it in the sense that they know it can actually help them in their own personal reflection, or businesses to just, even on an annual basis, biannual basis, just have a look at the video again, reapply the principles, a bit of a sense check, a bit of realignment in moving the business forward to ensure that the brand they represent is consistent with their purpose on an ongoing basis. So yeah, it'll definitely highlight the areas where there's misalignment, as I mentioned, and allow the business intention to come back onto course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it sounds quite simple, and I'm definitely going to spend some time watching the video, and because I've watched it before, but I watched some of his stuff around his opinion about millennials, and the beautiful point, just to side note here, like he also references millennials and what we can actually be learning from millennials, and the moment you kind of go, what are you talking about learning from the millennials, right? Then suddenly it raises the question like, okay, like where's my brain at? So definitely going to be re-looking at it, because it's a good reference point, I think. But you've mentioned you first mentioned the 11 points from the article you referenced. So what are the other key points around this, Craig?
Yeah, okay, Kevin, I'll list them for you now, and then I think we'll get to at least address the first 5, or at least the remaining points in the first 5, and I'll pick up on the next lot next week if time is against us today. But in essence, obviously, purpose, building your purpose and defining your purpose being point number 1. Point number 2 is researching competitor brands within your industry. Point number 3 is defining your brand's target audience. Point number 4 is to establish that brand vision and mission that we spoke about. Point number 5 is to outline the key qualities and benefits that your brand offers. Point number 6 is to let your brand personality shine. Number 7, point 6 is to form your own unique brand voice. And with that, is allowing you to let your brand personality shine as point number 7. Point number 8 is then to build your brand story and messaging. And point number 9 is to create a brand logo and tagline. Point number 10 is to integrate your brand into every aspect of your business. And point number 11 is to stay true to your brand building. So what's important, again, I mentioned right at the beginning of this conversation, is identity doesn't come first. The strategy comes first. Yeah. Building the strategy and building the understanding of the brand, the purpose of the brand, then coming into a point of getting to understand what your brand offers, the key benefits, and from that you're able to form your unique voice. Once your unique voice is in place, you can define your personality, and through that you can build your brand story and messaging. And once that's in place, you have a great position to actually now bring it to life through a visual style to develop your brand logo and tagline. And then when that's in place, all the rest is just a case of implementation. So let me address those next 5 points as I mentioned to you. So research competitor brands within your industry. It's important that you should always be aware of the competitor and what those brands are doing, or where they're failing. Yeah, they could be doing in some great areas. You want to learn from that. They could be failing in other areas. Is there an opportunity for you to take advantage of that? Yes.
Sorry, on that note, just
Yes.
and I don't know, you being in this position the whole time, and this is what you do. Do you sometimes find that people can obsess with competitors? I've found that people generally, the moment they start, they tend to get emotionally invested in why someone else is doing well or what they're doing better than what they are, and you kind of go, can this be a debilitator? Because you use the word aware, and I'm kind of going, that's key. Being aware of what your competitor is, but not comparing yourself to the competitor.
Oh, yeah, Kevin, that's a really great question, and it's a difficult one to find where awareness becomes the Achilles heel. You're absolutely right about that. However, I think based on the nature of the industry you operate in and the kinds of business that you operate, and the brands and products that you deliver to the market, the depth of the understanding may well vary from one to the next, because in some instances, process is the key differentiator. Okay. And if you don't understand the fundamental detail and makeup and investment behind that process, you might not get to understand the true nature of the competitors. So there might need to be a deeper layer of understanding that. The obsession to understand every single rand and cent of the price point on shelf may send you in the wrong direction as well, because in many instances when you do that, you feel that you need to be better at a price, and price is not necessarily the right approach to beat your competitor, because for me, many instances, by lowering your price is just a race to the bottom, because you're just on this trajectory downwards. So again, in that instance, the obsession could be a negative obsession, and you're focusing on the wrong areas of the competitor analysis.
I mean, Vusi, sorry, I'm completely sidetracking here, Craig, but Vusi Tebekwaya, a great entrepreneur in South Africa, he says, when you walk into a Ferrari store, you kind of you don't go, oh, let me check if, let me first check the prices before I check what Ferrari I'm going to, want to choose. You don't compare a Ferrari with a Toyota, right? So then price just flies right out the window. You're going there for Ferrari. So it speaks key to the value that you're getting in that product.
So let's look at Ferrari. Let's look at Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini. Yeah, if you look at those three brands side by side, at that point they're playing very much in a similar price point. Obviously, there are different models that will push you further up than down. What is the brand competitor suite offering in that instance? So I think that's very much where purpose also starts coming along, because at the end of the day, they're all playing in the high performance supercar space.
Yeah.
What is the production of their vehicle doing to the planet? What are they doing in terms of future technology, innovation, working to bring some value to the planet? Well, in many instances, at a Ferrari and Mercedes level, I'm not necessarily aware of at a Lamborghini level, they're all playing in the e-space, okay? And they're working hard to develop supercars in a e-technology, which really brings a positive spin. So their purpose is moving towards a bit more sustainability, environmental friendliness, but the evolution of technology on the sports field around the racetrack, which then comes to bear in high production volumes through the factory floor as well. So then you need to look at it relative to that variable as opposed to a price point variable.
Yeah, so when you start talking that conversation, price is like one of the things on the list of to get what you're going to get to. It's not really where you start with, which is it really makes you think about how you're messaging and what your brand's purpose and conversation really is, which is really cool.
Yeah, exactly that. So you need to understand the benchmark brand so you can position your brand to stand out against them by adopting these three principles. Number one is is the competitor consistent with the messaging and visual identity across their channels? And what is the quality of their product and services? And does the competitor have customer reviews or social mentions that you can pick up and read about them? And in what way does the competitor market their business both online and offline? So you move away from those foundational points to some of the others where you find opportunity to really step ahead from them. So yeah, point number 3 is one that you and I have a lot of conversation around, and probably still one of the most important. And again, if you look at the supercar space, define your target audience. Foundation for building your brand is to determine the target audience that you'll be focusing on. So when brand building, keep in mind who exactly you're trying to reach so that you can tailor your mission and message to meet their exact needs. And the more specific you are in defining that target audience, Kevin, the greater chance of success. And this includes defining the detailed behaviors and lifestyles of your potential customers. For instance, instead of all moms, you can narrow down to the niche mom, hone in on the single moms who work full-time from home for a particular product offer, or techie people is too broad, but the tech-savvy early adopters who manage large teams can narrow the focus in a particular suite for a B2B solution product, for instance. So you'll gain competitive advantage when you're able to narrow that target audience focus, and this can be achieved through building out your brand by personas. Again, a topic we've touched on recently. And for those that have missed some of those previous conversations, a few points to note when building that view of your ideal customer, just, simple things like age, gender, location, geographic, where do they live, what the income base is, what the educational level is. And then to take it to a more granular level, you can actually define your brand persona around the likes of motivations, goals, what are their pain points, what are your buyer fears, their desires, the influences, and the brand affinities that belong to that particular group. We can establish a brand mission and vision statement as point 4. So, what is your why? Why do you get up every day? As we said, the sweet spot. It's the clear expression of what your company is most passionate about, or what the brand most stands for, and you can before you build the brand that your target audience trusts, you really need to know what value your business provides, and your why will help you define what that value is. So 2 key points to remember here, Kevin, is 1, your brand vision is a future, a someday, an aspirational statement that your brand drives forward in helping you achieve success. And number 2 is your brand mission is a statement for the now. It's your everyday. It's a statement of commitment that is your roadmap for accomplishing your vision. And it'll inform you how to execute your brand building strategies. So everything from your logo to your tagline, your voice, your message, your personality should all reflect in that vision and mission. That future, that someday, to the now, to the statement of commitment for today. Point 5 here is outlining the key qualities and benefits your brand offers, Kevin. So starting a brand that's memorable means that you have to dig deep to find out what you offer and what no one else is offering. And as we mentioned again about the Formula track cars, they're all offering the same high performance capability. Who's playing in the e-space, and what are they doing to really stand out from the crowd? Your products and services and benefits belong solely to you, and focus on the quality and benefits that make your company and your branding unique. What's important to note here, Kevin, that it's not just the laundry list of all the features and products and services. That's just table stakes. It's about thinking how you provide value that improves customers' lives and the outcome or results that are experienced in the engagement with the brand. And some of these examples are defined as being more authentic or more transparent customer service, a better way to support productivity, reducing costs with more affordable options, saving time on a daily basis and through those daily tasks and experience with the brand, Kevin.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm just, as you're talking, I'm kind of making notes of like, how does this apply, and especially as from a marketing perspective, from like if you had a team of marketers compared to if you're an entrepreneur that's starting a brand, it still applies. These are conversations that still apply. So how do you become that differentiator? Like, what's more authentic about you compared to the next guy? Because essentially that's what makes the competition so great. I mean, we had a Facebook conversation around Facebook WhatsApp early in the year, around them changing their privacy policies, and people were like, competitors were kicking into gear, which is a really good thing, because then they have to start upping their game, and I think that's the importance of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about that uniqueness, and that's point 6 here. It's to form your unique brand voice. And brand voice is a fundamentally important part of the brand building exercise, because your voice is dependent firstly on your company's mission, your audience, and your industry, but it's how you communicate with your customers or consumers, and it's how they respond to you, and it's about creating the dialogue. So a brand voice could be professional, it could be friendly, it could be service oriented, it could be authoritative, it could be technical, it could be promotional, conversational, or informative. And again, each of these also talks to the point of when you're doing your competitor analysis. I cited the example of process. A business may be high process oriented. Their tone of voice and uniqueness around their brand voice could be one that is quite technical, because that's the nature of the construct of their business. So it's getting to understand that. But then in the technical space, how do you create a tone of voice that is technical but easy to understand, technical and meaningful, and technical that helps deliver solutions without being too technical and actually missing the point entirely. So
yeah,
choosing a brand voice that makes sense and resonates with your target customers, and remember, it needs to be consistent as well, because that helps your brand image become recognized on multi-channels in the same way, Kevin. Once you have that in place, you can let your brand personality shine through the various experiences that are tailored to meet customers' needs, and personal interaction is a key differentiator here. So there's a lovely brand personality spectrum that was picked up on Straight Marketing, referenced in the article, and it really asks a few questions. What is the personality of your brand? Are you on the personable and friendly side, or are you on the corporate and professional side? Are you on the spontaneous high energy side, or are you on the careful thinking planning side? Are you on the modern or high tech side, or are you on the quite classical tradition side? Are you on the cutting edge side, or are you more of an established brand? Are you a fun brand, or are you a serious brand? Are you accessible to all, or are you exclusive? And your brand can play anywhere on the spectrum. It can play across like an equalizer on a sound system. You have the opportunity of dialing up and dialing down, and you create whatever that end equalizer. If you look at these 7 points as maybe one of the dials on the equalizer, each brand could have its own DNA of where those levers on the equalizer are, and that is your brand personality spectrum at the end of the day. So make your personality stand out in every aspect of your branding. But remember that the brand personality needs to be consistent across all those contact points in the customer experience journey.
Yeah.
Kevin, building a brand story and messaging. When building the brand, tell customers succinctly who you are. Your message should be directly associated with the brand and conveyed consistently. The point here to remember is that this part of the brand development process is used to define the key aspects of who you are, what you offer, and why people should actually care and want to engage with you. And this is where you build your communications at a human level so that you can make direct contact and emotional contact with consumers. And the brand language and tone is critical in understanding how to make that emotional connection with consumers. And the closing statement on this point here is that when creating your brand story, Kevin, address not what your product can do, but more importantly, how to connect with your customer. and why your product is important to the customer.
Yeah, Craig, I mean, like the theme around, what are we on month number 5 already? Is like, it still comes back to the consumer. Like it still comes back to that customer conversation, right? And like, for me, it's like essentially, why do people care? Like, so what? Like you have to be able to be objective enough to kind of have that difficult conversation, especially when you're creating a brand and you're creating a new conversation. You have to be able to ask yourself, so why does anyone care?
Yeah. So address not what your product can do, but why it is important to the customer.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So once all that's in place, we can get to the point of now starting to build the brand logo and tagline. And for me, it's probably the most important aspect of building a brand when the foundational layers are all in place, because we know that this logo will appear on everything that relates to your business. It's the identity, it's the calling card, it's the visual recognition, and the visual recognition of the promise to the marketplace. So a strong brand style guide definitely needs to be developed, and it needs to be adhered to with ruthless consistency, and is made up of the following elements: the logo, the size, the placement, the color palettes, the typographies and fonts, the iconography, your photographic or image style, and all of the web elements as well, Kevin. But two more points to consider in building your brand. Integrate your brand into every aspect of your business. The brand should be visible and reflected in everything that your customer can see, read, and hear. For instance, if the client walks into your office, or a consumer walks into a retail store, or opens the digital e-shop front, your brand image should be displayed in all environments and with every single personal interaction. Anything from tangible business cards to advertisements to packaging and product needs, they all need the stamp of your logo. On any digital platform, just remember to ensure that the brand looks the same everywhere. Across the various social media touch points, you need to ensure that from website to social media to your digital marketing campaigning, all of your elements need to have ruthless consistency. And remember to incorporate your tone of voice, your messaging and personality into all of that content when designing your website. And the last point on the last thing to note on point 9, Kevin, is that all of the social media channels need to be considered when building out the brand, and where executed, done so with direct alignment to that tone of voice and personality. And often what has happened, established brands have been built without the understanding of social media, and with the advent of social media, sometimes there's been a bit of a misalignment there. And social media really needs to be considered as part of the foundational aspects of brand building. So final point on building brand here, Kevin: stay true to building your brand. Unless you decide to change your brand into something that is more effective based on measured consumer response, consistency is key. Once you've established a brand voice, use it for everyday piece of content you create. Document all the brand guidelines you create and distribute them internally for reference. What is brand building worth if not consistent? Don't constantly change your branding. The inconsistencies will definitely confuse your consumers and make your long-term brand building more difficult, and actually could. One instance of inconsistency can lead to a point of mistrust with the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, I really love that we're covering the brand fundamentals, and it really, has extreme depth that it goes into, and I think a lot of people don't realize what that looks like and what that is, and what it takes in building a brand, most importantly, but keeping it relevant and fit for purpose in meeting consumers' needs.
Yeah, Kevin, absolutely. It's not a 5-minute exercise, nor is it something you want to cut corners on. It's important to remember that the more time and energy that you invest in the brand, the greater the chance of generating returns above simple profit. And we spoke about brands that stand out, brands that are positioned for purpose and good definitely have a higher choice of being purchased than others. So the greater the chance of achieving that, the greater the chance of embedding loyalty, credibility and creating connection with the target audience.
Yeah, fantastic. Craig, so from today's session, what are the key tips and takeaways that we can share with everyone listening in?
Okay, Kevin, referencing a really great article on strategynewmedia.com blog, I want to just share the few simple tips with you. Branding promotes recognition. So people tend to buy brands or do business with companies they're familiar with. If your branding is consistent and easy to recognize, it definitely can help people feel more at ease purchasing your products or services. Your brand helps you set apart from the competition. It's critical to stand apart from the crowd. You're no longer competing on a local stage. Your brand organization now competes in the global economy, particularly in the e-com space. Your brand tells people about your business's DNA. So your full brand experience, from the visual elements like the logo to the way your phones are answered, tell your customers about the kind of brand that you are. Your brand promotes motivation and direction for your staff. A clear brand strategy provides the clarity that your staff need to be successful, and it tells them how to act, how to win, and how to meet the organization's goals. A really, really important point there. A strong brand generates referrals. People love to tell others about the brands they like. They wear brands, eat brands, listen to brands, and are constantly telling others about the brands they love. A strong brand website strategy, like backlinks, is critical to generating these referrals or viral traffic. A strong brand helps customers know what to expect, Kevin. A brand that is consistent and clear puts the customers at ease because they know exactly what to expect each and every single time they experience the brand. Your brand represents your promise to your customer. It's important to remember that your brand represents you. You are the brand, your staff. Your staff are the brand, and your marketing materials are the brand. What they say about you and what they say about what you're going to deliver to the customer is key. That's your promise. Your brand helps create clarity and stay focused. It's easy to wander around from idea to idea with nothing to guide you. It doesn't take long to veer from your original goals or plans. So ensure you have a clear brand strategy that helps you stay focused on your mission and vision as an organization. Your brand helps connect you with customers emotionally. A good brand connects with the people at an emotional level. They feel good when they buy your brand. Purchasing is an emotional experience, and having a strong brand helps people feel good at an emotional level when they engage with the company. And lastly, Kevin, a strong brand provides great business value. Strong brand will provide value to the organization well beyond your physical assets. For instance, think about the brands you purchase from, like Coca-Cola, Apple, Ford, Mercedes, any of those brands. Are these companies really worth the equipment, products, warehouses, or factories? No, they're worth a hell of a lot more. They're worth more than their physical assets. Why? Because their brands have created value that far exceeds the physical value used to create their brands. And those are the tips for today, Kevin.
Yeah, and I love that, Craig, because the brand has created value that exceeds their physical value. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I do what I do, is because there are moments that you have with people when you go through programs, leadership stuff, coaching sessions, training sessions, and you leave value with people, or someone takes some kind of value away from that and literally changes their life forever. So and that's why I do what I do.
That's fantastic.
That exact value. Like I'm always on the viewpoint of what is potentially possible in this moment, for whoever takes it upon themselves to do any changes. So when you consider what's potentially possible, like anything, right? Anything's potentially possible. So it becomes, invaluable kind of value that's placed on it. But Craig, thank you for today. I love this conversation. I love that we bringing it back to the brand fundamentals. Again, it's like sparking interest and conversation in my head. But what do we have lined up for next week?
Yeah, Kevin, it's wonderful to be able to see the amount of content that is out there to help folk build brands. It really is, and it's been great to be able to draw from some of the nice, clean, simple, articulated points in today. So I want to keep on the fundamentals of brand building next week, and I want to look at one or two key South African brands against the points that we referenced today, and see how those brands have been built and what are they actually doing now in the digital age.
Fantastic. Exciting stuff, guys. If you want to join us for the marketing segment happening every Thursday at 12 on ebuzradio.com, go and check it out online, and go and check it out on the YouTube channel, and you can also catch it on iTunes, Spotify, and I think the Google Podcasts as well. So go and check out eBuz Radio there. Craig and I are there every Thursday with some more information to chat about. Craig, thank you so much for joining me, and thanks for today's conversation.
Yeah, fantastic, Kevin. Thank you. Look forward to the next.
Chat soon. Cheers for now.